The Housing, Health, and Public Safety Committee. It's unusually cold in here as opposed to us being roasting, so that's why we're all bundled up. A couple items on the agenda, and we do have a few folks here today, and I know you, sir, are interested in rental registration. Oh, I imagine you as well. Is anyone here regarding the yard sale? The controversial yard sale, okay. So, if you recall, we brought the yard sale ordinance back, and now, of course, I can't find it to pull it up. But I sent everyone, or at least I thought I did, the red line from the law department. Did you guys get a chance to see that?
I just can't find it. Yeah, I don't think there's like an actual
No, there's no attachment from the law
attachment,
department.
yeah.
It's just like your original. We didn't get any.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Well, let me send it over to you. It was all the things we suggested.
I have the one that's like highlighted where you have the questions.
There's like that,
Yeah.
this part, but yeah. But it's not like an actual attachment.
Okay.
Was that it or is there something else?
There's something else.
Okay.
Oh, man. The more organized I try to get, the less. So that I would have forwarded that. So one point that I just had a question on was the 3-day in a row item, because there is a rule in the ordinance that says you can't have a yard sale 3 consecutive days. I couldn't tell if that would also include the yard sale weekend where the city has no permits, no permit fees. If that would include that weekend. So I wanted to see what people thought about that.
I mean, can we just put a verbiage in to say excluding that weekend,
I think that's fine.
it's allowed? Or
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm still looking for it. I can't search for things in Microsoft Outlook.
yes.
It's not ideal. I also have a very hard time finding that. Anyway.
Oh, the one issue, and I was having it in people's front yards. We were talking about, so the twice yearly sales allow the yard sales in the front and the side, but normal yard sales are to be in the back.
Other than
Which-
the weekend.
Correct. Is that okay with folks, or would you prefer something different? Oh my gosh.
I guess I'm just not that particular about yard sales being in the front or backyard.
I mean, to me, that's a building department or Board of Health. Like, is this
So-
okay?
Right, like is there a reason?
Yeah.
The building department would rather they not be in the front, as sort of eyesore
distinguish.
kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, I have it here. Now how do I get it to you guys? Do I have to download it?
I think
And
you
then
would, and then, yeah, just mail it.
Send it?
Yeah.
Okay. Keep talking amongst yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, if the building department wants it, like, if you're getting a permit and it's outside of the city weekend that we do it, and they want it in the side or backyard, I would say that's fine. Another little special caveat, like, if you want to do it in the front yard, then do it this weekend. I don't know. I personally don't care.
I
I
think
don't really either.
my question is why let it happen on the 2 days free a year versus not when someone
guess
comes
if everyone
and
ha-
pays for a permit, like that's.
I guess
Yeah.
the logic would be if everyone has the same eyesore, can it be an eyesore? If everyone has it, if we're all conforming.
Makes perfect sense to me.
I believe the theory is that twice a year we do this big thing, and we're just sort of expecting to have lots of it, and having it in the front yard encourages people to walk
Stop.
down the street and more interaction.
Yeah,
So it's more of this is a special occasion
yeah.
front yard as opposed to it's, Sunday in May and I've got a bunch of stuff that I want to get rid of and I'm putting it in my front yard to sell.
I guess I'm fine with it. If anyone came out and was just like, if any people who frequently run yard sales are like, I would prefer it to be in the front. Like, I think we could just revisit.
Yeah.
But I know as a shopper, I wouldn't want to go in people's backyards.
Yeah,
Would stress me out a little.
I'd get a little,
Watch one too many true crime documentaries.
That's a good point.
I didn't think about
That's a
that.
good point.
I just
You guys aren't living in constant fear.
That's a great point.
I haven't been to a yard sale in a hot minute.
I think you need to watch like The Office or something.
I was watching The West Wing before this, which might also just be more stressful. I guess that would be my only thought is
Safety.
I wouldn't want to go in a backyard.
Yeah.
I used to really enjoy yard sales, but that was when I had a lot of time on my hands.
It is,
reason, I
it's
don't
like a
think it's
hobby
time allowed.
almost, yeah. I'll say my family members that yard sale are all retired, so.
The other just thing to note is that he suggested changing it to home sales instead of yard sales because that's more consistent with the language, I believe, is what he said in his email.
I feel like that's confusing.
Oh, you mean it says home sales, but change it to yard sales?
No, we always call it yard sale,
Okay.
but he said, oh brother, now where did it
I feel
go?
like that makes
I
it
thought you
sound,
said
I
on the ordinance it's labeled as,
feel like that makes it sound like you're
He's-
selling a house.
Yeah.
All right, let me try to find it again.
what the email said was it was listed as home sale, and people could confuse that as real estate, so yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Oh, it does
Oh,
say
he
home
says,
sales.
is the yard sale he says, actually, I think we should change the title from home sales to yard sales.
That
since
makes
the
much more
existing
sense.
title looks
Yeah.
like a real estate regulation, which I would just skip over looking, okay.
Yeah.
So that was his suggestion, which is not on the line item.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
like
we
that.
do want to change it from home sale to yard sale.
I think,
Okay,
yeah.
awesome. Any other, we've lost a council member.
I'm back.
Those outlets are real deep under there.
Gotta get some juice.
Appreciated. All right, so you guys take a look at it, see anything that you,
Is the PDF also, is this the original, the PDF
Yes.
and then the Word doc? Okay.
and I would also just have them change home to yard throughout the document.
I think that makes
Um,
sense.
Yeah. All good?
So change it to yard and then
Mm-hmm.
3 consecutive days barring,
Do you have to,
barring the citywide yard sales.
do we have to make a motion?
Hold on, 3 consecutive days. No fee. Okay. So do you want me to have it updated and come back here, or updated and go to council? Can we just have it go straight to council?
Yeah,
we can do
with
that.
updates.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm on, a little, you left it, you're putting the Sundays back in, allowing Sundays now? Is that the
Yeah,
issue?
that was yes.
Okay, yeah, yep, I mean, I'm a little uncomfortable with that, I mean, but that's, I'm one vote, so I mean, it's okay that I don't agree, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just a little uncomfortable, someone, have we learned anything about that? Like the reason why? The reason why that they're
Well,
allowed on Sundays? Did we know, did we hear anything else about that or not? Just curious.
Did we hear anything else about
why they did not allow them on, or
Oh,
why
well,
they-
because historically, everything was not done on Sunday. Lots of things were
Sunday.
closed on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it was sort of a religious recognition for Christian folks, some Christian
Yeah,
folks.
I'm told that, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no, please.
But I'm told that, that a Reverend Chalifant, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying his name correctly, from the former Holy Rollers Church on Floral Avenue. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not exactly sure which one that is, but I'm told that he argued that because Jesus threw out the vendors on the Sunday, that's the reason for that. So
Mm-hmm. Oh.
I don't know if you recall that in the Bible or not, but anyway, that's what I'm told. So I'm just slightly uncomfortable with that, just because I'm afraid I'll have to spend more time in purgatory, but
Oh,
whatever. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. Other than that, I think everything's fine.
okay.
Is that not a valid point?
That's it.
Purgatory?
Feel free to vote no if you're worried about
Can I argue
purgatory.
that?
I mean, absolutely.
That's it. That's
We
the only thing I'm a little
welcome,
uncomfortable
yeah.
with, but
Did-
the rest is fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so then do we want to have a motion that with the changes, it will go to council for next, and I don't think we'll need all 3 readings. I think we'll still have time before the next yard sale. You know what I mean?
Is the first one in May, the citywide?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
I think it's May, right?
That sounds right, yeah.
So we should have time.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else about yard sales? I know that was really riveting for the last 20 minutes, sorry about that. Okay, educational workshops. This is really exciting. I just want to share how this came to be because it was one of those really cool organic things that I really love. I was at the Chamber of Commerce meeting where the mayor was giving the State of the City address, and walked in, and it was introduced to a woman who was at First Commonwealth Bank, which is literally right there, we now know. And I was like, hey, I had this idea about trying to get educational programs into our community for residents for free. And she's like, oh my gosh, let's do it. So that's how that happened. And so she got my card, I got her card. We went to Birdie's and had a coffee, and I met with her, Chelsea, and her boss, Esteban, lovely folks. And so they, with First Commonwealth, want to do these lunch and learn educational opportunities in conjunction with the city to help. So the city would provide a location and help with advertising. There'd be no cost to the residents. And I do have a survey I meant to share with you guys earlier. My apologies. It's showed around. So it's just to get a question of what kind of workshops would you want? First-time homebuyer seminar, financial literacy, do you want to learn more about mortgage options, home equity options, and then what would be your second choice, your third choice, and then what weekday time would be most convenient for you? Morning with breakfast provided, afternoon with lunch, evening with snacks. My thought was we could probably do it in the community center as long as it's available, obviously. So with your permission, with support, I'd like to have this go to, well, I guess we just need to send it out. It doesn't need to go to the council as a whole, does it?
Not unless you want them to support something, if you
Right.
want a resolution or an ordinance, if you just
No.
want to, I don't think there's any need for, if
Yeah.
you want to just partner
Just
up
do it
with a
on-
committee.
Yeah.
I guess that's a question for Keith, but Mr. Moore, that is.
I will shoot this over to you guys as well, so you
And
can
we-
take a look at the
Yeah.
link.
We've done learning workshops at the community center before when we had the home group and all that, so.
Yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's no big deal.
Okay, and then, John, I'm sending that link. as well. So if you have anything, like any typos or anything that needs to be addressed, call it lunch and learn, just because that's what I was thinking. And then would probably do that in early spring, like April, March, April, late March, early April. Any
That's fine.
thoughts on that?
Yeah.
Cool beans, okay. And now what everyone's been waiting for, the rental registration conversation. Do you want to share?
Yeah, I know we've been talking about this 2+ years, and it's been talked about for a long time. But I finally kind of wanted to bring it up because what the city says we do, we're not doing right now. So I wanted just to have it current. And I always want to put forward, like, we're not doing any type of, they're not going to come do an inspection, right? We're not doing that. It's not going to be a certificate program or anything like that. So kind of taking that out. What the city has kind of said to us, though, is like, look, we're having a problem with landlords who don't live nearby. And what we can hear a lot, too, just on council is, I'm annoyed with this property, or da-da-da, you know, we get that from residents, and we're like, well, there's no citations on this property, there's no violations. Like, if it is a property, then be a responsible resident and make the complaint, and, you know, city will check it out. So one thing that we're specifically looking at here is like taking out the initial inspection. If there is a problem or a violation or something, yes, the city will do an inspection current to what that was. But we've looked at a few other cities who have said specifically, like, okay, if you own a property in our city, so say for Norwood, and you don't live in Hamilton County, then we want you to pick out a designated agent that lives within Hamilton County that the city can directly contact. And so I need to hear back on maybe getting specific examples so we really understand why. You know, we know we can access that information off Hamilton County. We know we have the rental registration information in the water department. Like, you guys, you know, the landlords that I've spoken to, which I'm very, very grateful for all your input, we know that information's already there. But the city's just kind of having an issue with holding those landlords who don't live close by accountable. So trying to figure that out. I don't want it to impact landlords who are doing a great job. I don't want that to become an issue. I don't want to create more work for anybody who has property and does a great job with it. But we're just trying to find that line of, like, if there is a property that is an issue, the city can hold them accountable. And so that's what we're kind of looking at right here. As of now, it's just been a conversation here, a conversation with the service safety director and Mr. Skelly. There's a lot in here, so I planned on sending it to the fire department, to the police department, because they're all listed in here of, like, this is their responsibilities, just to really update it and see what actually is occurring, if there's any other changes that need to go in there. There's been some talk of, and again, nothing concrete yet, but like if there is a registration fee, and I have asked this question, I'm like, do we want this just to be for landlords who are not in the area? So if you live out of Hamilton County, yes, you do have a registration fee of, I'm just throwing a number out there, like $25 every 3 years. We need, that's the cost of the city doing paperwork to make sure you're registered. And then definitely putting a cap on that too. We don't want people spending absorbent amount of money, but just saying, like, if we have to do the paperwork, we need some kind of payment for that. So that's been discussed of a fee, and then also definitely putting a cap on that so someone's not continuing to pay more money there. So that's all we really have for right now. Again, we really want everyone's input, because I don't want landlords who are doing a great job have to do more work or have to pay more money or be punished. But the city, we're really trying to figure out what can we do to kind of help make sure if there is a problem property, we can hold them accountable. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So open discussion for anybody.
So I would like to invite the landlords to talk, and I think that we need to pay attention to that. We have like some of the big landlord issues, such as Quality Inn was one of our biggest, most visible absentee landlord. We literally couldn't get in front of that person, and they didn't care. So we've got things like that, and then you also have people who have a rental, but it's listed as an LLC with no contact. So so if the building department has an issue or the Board of Health has an issue, there's no, it's a 1-800 number, or they're in, Texas. So that's the sort of thing we're trying to decrease and get those local addresses. So we're aware that it's a wide scope we have to manage. But we'd love to hear what your thoughts and concerns are.
I got a couple.
Please.
Couple things. Just, I understand the need and where we're going here. Do we know that when you purchase a property or a home, or when you purchase that, there's a box that you have to label whether or not it is rental property or you're a resident, you're going to be the resident here. So it's already, we're filing that with Hamilton County when we purchase that property. So they would have that on file. And now I did hear you say you want to contact. That's totally reasonable, and I understand that. I do understand why people wouldn't want to have contact with their government too. So they may not want to have contact. I'm just throwing that out there. This is the things that come to mind. Like, yeah, I own a house, but I don't want to contact my government. So people that think like that, I don't think I'm the one that thinks like that, but I think I can see that as a reasonable, like, why would I contact my government? So that's just some things that come to mind. And I know we did it once, and I'll just go ahead and get this out, and I'll be quiet and let you guys talk. Well, I know we did this once, and we were registering rentals, and then they quit doing it. We stopped doing it, and we was charging people, and we stopped doing it because we didn't have the manpower or whatever that may be. So,
well, there was a federal case on it, right? Like, we were requesting to go in and do inspections prior, and that was deemed like, no, you can't do that.
Okay.
So that, it stopped for a federal case.
Oh, I appreciate that info. Yeah, I didn't hear that.
So that's
great. That's awesome, Candace. Yeah.
No.
That's incorrect.
That's what I was told.
I love that. I like that, but I didn't hear that either. But yeah, so
The initial, they said like, so what I was told is like, from is legally, I don't know, the city, they said we can't go in for that certificate.
I like that.
But
Are you aware of that?
Lastly, my last point is if the county is doing it once and then we're doing it twice, then are we doubling up on that? That's my last comment. So.
Okay, as a practical matter, the city stopped doing it because we never really did, as far as I know, at least while I was on council, we never really did it for all of the landlords. We did it for some of the properties, but we didn't do it for all of them. And by the time we were looking at, should we raise the rate? Should we maybe modify this? Then the case started coming down. We can't do this. So started looking at it. But the idea of getting into, just as a practical matter, we were maybe have 1,000 active out of, or 2,000 active out of 5,000 doors, 4,500 doors. And so as a practical matter, we were getting the people that were responsible anyway, instead of the ones that were completely absentee and we, never had any contact with. And so that's one of the things to factor, even if it's just a registration and we need it's a $5 registration and we need a local contact. It's just processing the 4,500, 5,000, whatever that number is, to process all of those on whatever rolling basis there is. But that was the reason that we kind of got away with it. For me, it was a great thing as a council member when I get a call. You check, well, do they have any building code violations? Do they have any? any fire code? Do they have any, health code violations? And do they have their rental certificate? And if they're really bad, well, if they don't have their rental certificate, we can vacate the property. So that was helpful for the really bad ones, but it was never really effectively carried out. You'd need, I don't know how many hundreds of people to inspect every unit every year, so.
Can I follow up on that? Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Moore. I'm just curious on your thoughts. I got a real question for you. So if it didn't work then, is there something that we could change that will work now? Or is this something that we're just not going to work for us?
Well, there are things you could do. I mean, the idea of inspecting every property every time, and the logic is kind of thinking, but it's like a restaurant. It's like you're serving food to people. There's a regulatory reason to make sure that you're not endangering people's lives when you do it. And the same with, you're renting somebody's house to them there's a reason. Have somebody come in and inspect is the fire safety, is the gas line hooked up, is the heat work, that kind of thing. There's a certain logic to that, but if that's where you want to go, that's one way. If you want to go, but I think the idea of having a local agent makes sense. Somebody that can be contacted for instances when the heat's out and it's Christmas and nobody at the landlord's whatever office is answering.
Makes sense.
Or whatever, that kind of thing. But that, beyond that, it's just a question of what you want to do, what you want to put the resources in. What is the goal here? Is it we just want to have a responsible party to reach, or we want, and that's for both when there's an emergency and also when, hey, we got violations written against you on a regular, just we got some violations, dragging somebody here to actually take responsibility for it? Or do you want to try to get into a regulatory regime to ensure the safety of the property and they're in compliance with code? Which is a hard thing to do up front, as opposed to just making tenants more aware of what their rights are. But you might want to ask, because you guys, the fire department inspects a lot of rental properties on the fire code side. You may want to ask him if he's got thoughts on it.
Well,
I have a question for him. I'm sorry, Ms. Hoover.
I was just going to say,
Right.
to respond to your question about the Hamilton County Auditor, they don't always have a local contact through there. And I did contact the auditor's office, and they do not have a plan to do that at this point. They did say that they wish that they did. We are a much smaller municipality, so I think that our chances are much better. But it is possible to have rental property in Norwood and not have a local agent through the auditor's website.
Right. I got you. Yeah,
Okay.
that's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I think if you're an LLC, you just have to have an agent in Ohio, right?
So,
So-
to worry about safety, we're worried about safety. I guess my question would be to our fire chief would be, if there is how do they get in to inspect an unsafe environment? Like do they get like a call and say, hey, I think this place is unsafe? Or do they do that a lot? Is that something that's normal?
Chief McCabe, would you like to speak
then,
to fire inspections?
So for fire inspections, fire code gives us a lot of leeway. However, when you're talking about specifically owner occupied, that's a very different arena. So in Norwood, fire department inspects certain levels of rental property. So if it's a registered college housing unit, we inspect all of those every year. That's a huge fight because there's no registry for them. Even though they have the giant XU on their plaque, they're claiming they're not college, but we still get into those, and it just takes a lot of manpower and persuasion. We do any multifamily unit that are 7 units or higher. Back in the day, we did a lot of the 4 families, but we don't necessarily go into the living units because that's really personal space and that requires a signature. So really what we're doing is common area space. So we walk into the hallways, the stairs, the basements, and that's it. And that's really, for lack of a better term, non-productive use of time. Very rarely do we find anything of any substantial value in terms of fire protection or fire safety. I think when you consider things like this, you have to really consider the enforcement piece. You guys can pass a lot of legislation and say, we want this to be done, but really think on the back end, how are we enforcing this? And who's actually doing the enforcement work? I will tell you that there's issues with problem properties, and some of you were privy to the last one where we had a person who lived on the property and had just oodles and oodles of trash, and we consistently had to utilize the court system to rectify that. So there is vehicles and ways to address a problem property. I would assume that with the rapid rate of property valuations in this town going up, that rentals are going to be fewer and far between. I think you're going to see the continuation of houses being sold, rehabbed, turned back into single families and sold for enormous profits. You'll still have rentals here. But I don't know. I don't know if there's a huge value. I understand the thought process of the agent having someone to contact, because we've run into that where we've had a building where it's lost heat and we've had to get Red Cross involved to get these people at least housed temporarily. And it's an enormous issue if you don't have good contact info. That's also an enormous workload to keep updating that. And we touch these buildings every year, and we still have trouble getting reliable and accurate contact information, even for our businesses. You know, our fire inspection bureau does every commercial business every year. We do our 7 families above every year. We do our college houses every year, and it's just a constant. And all of our stuff is in digital cloud. We use a software suite that we can just do it live on a tablet, and it's updated immediately. And even with that, it's a little bit of a struggle.
Excuse me, sir, are you using Cages?
No, Cages is a system that's really utilized for zoning and planning.
Which
Cages
system are you using?
So it's really just we'll call it a records management system.
Okay.
We use a program called Sansio that does everything for our fire reporting. So we're required to report all of our fire responses, not only nationally but to the state. And there's a certain guideline or parameters that each run requires to be filled out and get sent in, and that we do utilize our fire inspection piece on that as well. So it's a single suite. There's different manufacturers of this stuff that you talk to a fire department over here. They use ESO. It's always a changing gamut. So, but yeah, it's a constant. I mean, our fire prevention bureau is made up of 2 full-time inspectors, and we have a full-time clerk. That's all she does is update records. And it's a nonstop. So when you start talking about doing enforcement of these issues, that's a lot. I mean, you really need to get the players involved who are going to go out and hit the streets and do this enforcement piece. And what's that look like when you actually have to cite them to court, and what that goes on past that. Property rights in Ohio are pretty strong for the property owner, so it's a large hill to climb. I think, my personal opinion, we've seen a great change in terms of the way properties are cared for in the city over the last 5-6 years, and I think you'll continue to see that. But you can see there's properties that are distressed that are on people's radars and still nothing going on with it. Even if they know who the owner is, it's a tough push. So, yes, sir.
Follow up. Yeah, just a few things. There's all kinds of things. So you said a few things that were really touching. One of them was that we do have means in place to take care of things like this. But I think that the contact is a good point. A local contact is a great thing. I think that's something we should focus on. When we try to focus on the good renter, because the people that's going to participate are the ones that are involved and are here, and they're the ones that are, but the ones that aren't going to participate. And then you said it's going to be a great task to be able to do all this, because there's a whole lot of them. So that's a whole lot of work. Is that what you, like, there's a whole lot of work involved in something like this?
I don't know what the
Yes
true
and
rental
no.
numbers are. I mean, last count I knew there was, I want to say off the top of my head, there was 8,000 residential households in this town. That's housing units. That doesn't mean individual,
Right.
buildings.
8,000?
Yes.
That's all?
Like households, like,
Yeah. So, housing units, yeah. And that doesn't include the new apartment buildings being built, but up until a certain point, 51% of those are rentals. Now, I think that number's changing, and changing fast.
but of those, and this is just to keep in mind, of those, we just need the slice of those whose local contacts we don't have.
I don't think you
And
can
that's-
enforce. I don't think you can enforce that. That'd be a question. I think you start doing selective registration, and then you
No,
get
no,
yourself in
no,
trouble.
it's not selective registration, it's that we just need a local contact.
Okay.
So you're still doing the registration.
Just saying that's normal business.
Okay, good. Somebody just made a good
Right.
point to me.
I don't know how you're gonna get that unless you enforce a required registration across the board.
Right, it would be, but the problem people, or the issue won't be with the vast majority of, 50,000 or 5,000.
Sure.
It's just those who don't have a local contact.
And those probably won't provide you with a local contact.
Right, but then we could have, we had a conversation with the safety service director, and there was a path forward to
Yeah, so
to deal
Mr.
with
Patterson,
that.
and I was asked some time, like, if this were to be enacted for, again, out of town owners, he was like, oh, give them 6 months. And again, I'm assuming he has a plan, like, if it's registration online or vice versa, but he said, if you don't register, you no longer can be a rental. I don't know who's going to enforce that, but to me, like, I don't know, administration's like, we need help in this area. So I'm assuming there's,
Being the report system, I believe, we have to enforce that. I mean, you're talking enormous manpower issues that I don't know that, is that issue that large?
I have a Ward 4 resident, actually, who's a homeowner, who was having such issues with a neighbor that they moved.
No, I believe
They were
it.
homeowners.
I believe it.
And they moved. I mean, it actually broke it was just horrifying. And I was actively involved in doing all the other things that we could, the fire department, or not the fire department, but the building department with those issues, the Board of Health with some issues, so it's another way another tool we can have to manage those sorts of properties. And that was another one of those LLCs, which we don't know where it is. And I think it was actually sold even during the time that we were trying to deal with it. So is it a massive problem? Is it happening all over Norwood? No, but is that a tool that administration feels would be helpful? Yeah, the people that I've talked to. And I'm interested, and I'm happy to talk about
Sure.
the manpower.
Just being here for 24 years, I don't see any registration causing any significant changes to those issues.
There's a gentleman behind you nodding, and I'd like to hear.
I got 2 more points.
Okay.
We'll start
Yes,
getting
sir.
mine.
Apologies.
2 more points. So, to your point, which is a good point, as far as a local contact, maybe we could look into if somebody goes to open the water bill. Like, because you have to have water on the home, so if somebody opens that water bill, maybe we can tag that and say, well, we gotta have a local contact. That's one way we could probably deal with that. Secondly is, where do we say that government, where's the line at? Is there a line, or, because we just keep moving the goal, in my opinion, this is just opinion now, don't let me get too much, because sometimes I think things and I probably shouldn't say them, but we have a line here, and like, we keep moving the goalpost, and where is the line?
What's
at?
the goalpost?
Well, as far as what government, you keep, like, okay, well, most of our landlords doing good, but we want to pick on those ones that aren't doing good, which I'm not saying we're pick on them, but we want to get them, so we want to move the goalpost and allow us to do more, so we're just going to keep.
But we moved the goalpost back, and I guess that's why because I really do want to
That's okay.
understand you.
That's okay.
Because we used to say we want to do an inspection, and we want to
And
be
they quit
all up in
doing
your
that. They
business.
stopped doing it
And
because
we
it didn't
stopped
work.
doing that,
So it
right?
didn't
And then
work.
we were
That's
just kind of
failed.
doing nothing.
That's
right?
failed.
So I guess I'm thinking that was the goalpost up here, and we're saying is, hey, if your house is on fire, we want to get in touch with you.
Well, see-
And so I guess I'm.
Here's
Yeah,
where my
please.
thing is. You've moved the goalpost because right now we're not doing it. So you want to go back to
okay.
registration. So you want to move the goalpost, and then from the registration. So we used to do registration, but that's the goalpost. Right now we're not. So you want to. That's my point.
Okay.
So, I don't. I don't. Obviously, you can tell where I stand on it, but it just these are points that are coming
and
to
I just
mind.
wanted to update this to be like, what is reasonable for today?
let's hear from you.
Like, people are logging on and be like, oh, I'm gonna have to go through all this as a landlord, and I'm like, no, we're not actually doing this. And so
I
I
see.
would like to update it too and be like, okay,
I
this
see.
is actuality of what it takes to be a landlord in Norwood.
Yeah, I would, to your point, I mean, government has a responsibility to provide a safe and sound neighborhood for their constituents,
Yes, sir.
right? So I totally grasp the issue at hand. And for a while, we had a lot of problem properties. But our recent one was an owner occupied one. It wasn't even a rental. So I guess for me, it's just really, as you look at this, really understand the enforcement piece. I don't know that what you're asking of the building owners who are renting these out, that's going to capture that information you want. Even if it's a problem property, you can do the same things you would do to them to allow them not to rent versus having them register just the other name to do that same piece. The vehicle to get them to stop is the same. You're going to have to take them to court over a violation of renting. Just the city saying you can't rent this is not going to happen.
I guess
it's
what
gonna be
I'm
court.
And
thinking
Mr.
is
Chief,
when,
that was my point when I said that we already have in place the tools
But-
to handle that. So that was kind of
but
my
like we
point.
couldn't give that paperwork to the owner of Quality Inn. 'Cause
That's not true.
Oh, we absolutely did. We shut them down. We shut them down.
Well, so
We shut them down.
As the property
We
sat
shut it
in, as the property sat in disrepair, the fire department had many citations against the ownership group. I actually had phone conversations with the owner. So it wasn't, I mean, he was from Dallas. We knew his name, we had his address, we were able to do it. But if we really wanted to pursue that piece, it was a matter of taking him to court. And what was the good of that for us? It was boarded up for the most part. It was becoming an issue near the end with the amount of homelessness that was overtaking part of the building. And we started discussing it with the administration, but by that time, it went to sheriff's auction, basically, and was sold off. There was a lot to deal with that property in terms of things that you guys don't know. There was a large insurance claim filed by the owner because it was vandalized. He was in protracted litigation with the insurance companies, which everything draws even longer to get anything figured out. There is no happy answer in terms of enforcement with property code stuff, with rental registrations. It's a long slog in the court system when you actually move to do something. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Is
much.
there anything that we can do to make it easier for you guys going into certain properties that you're having a hard time with?
You know, I think the biggest thing that could really help with this issue is some increased communication between city departments sometimes. Sometimes information sharing isn't, shall we say, the fastest. And it's better than it has been in a long time. They used to do these team inspections, which got the city in trouble because there was some, quite frankly, violations of people's rights. I mean, it was way out of bounds. You know, we don't have many issues with problem properties from a fire department perspective. When we do, we engage the people we need to, and generally speaking, we get them fixed. Now, we don't deal with the property maintenance piece, right? That's a little ticky-tack for what we're doing. I understand it's an important piece from a resident's perspective. They don't want their property next to them, you know, looking awful or whatnot. But, you know, I guess that'd be the questions I'd ask if I was in your chairs. Is this really an enormous issue? And how can we actually enforce the issue should we move forward with something? So, thank you for your time.
thank you. Mr. Kelly, would you like to? We're friendly, we want to hear what you have to say.
I'll go first so she can make make her
what you
look
say.
good because, you know, she's better spoken than I am. So, name's Cameron Kelly. My wife Sandra and I have been landlords here for 25 years now, and we live in Norwood because we were first landlords. We had enough property here that we wanted to be local. We wanted to be able to service our tenants quickly, provide good housing and a good experience for people that we provide housing for. So we were participants back when there was the rental inspection program, and probably one of the most frustrating things to a good landlord back in that day is the good people were the ones complying, and the places that needed help, like, were avoided. Like, and it was just very frustrating. We were paying, I don't know what it was back at the time, like $30 to $50 a unit per year or per every 2 years for them to come in and do inspections, and not everything you would agree with needed fixed. They'd be like, oh, there's a piece of lattice that's missing from the right side of your porch. And, you felt very like targeted that, hey, I'm trying to do a good job. I'm letting you in my place. My smoke detectors, for the most part, all work. And you're complaining I got a piece of lattice missing, and this guy down here, you're not even getting in his property. So I kind of fail to see what would change as far as enforcement goes. We have the auditor's site. We have the Secretary of State's site. If you want to find out who the agent is for an LLC, you type that LLC in the Secretary of State's site and it gives you that agent's contact information. It's not hard. I've said my wife can find anybody, and that's how we bought some
If you want a job with the city, we've got some openings.
some of our property. So I look at like the whole local contact. I've heard a lot of local. If someone's going to avoid you, it doesn't matter if they're in Loveland or Texas, like they're going to avoid you. And the fact that, unless we're going to send the building department over to Loveland in a car and knock on their door and say, hey, like, what's up? You need to fix your property. I personally don't see like any big difference about them being local or out of town. If they're going to avoid you, they're going to avoid you. Last thing, and I'm sure she'll have more to say, is the court case that was mentioned. There was a court case. It was based on privacy. Like, I was here at the time when that whole rental registration / inspection program was being debated on whether to continue or not, and this council chamber was full. And I just want to say, like, we invest in Norwood because like we've sold off all of our Cincinnati property, and we invest in Norwood because it's a place where we don't have to deal with some of the overreach, should I say, by city government, and capital will flow to places that it's easy. And like, I don't ever want to be forced with like any kind of decisions where, man, this is just not worth it. And I'm just always got my ears open if there's something that looks like, it might make it harder for us as good landlords. And I don't want to see an army of people, an army of real estate investors in here saying, what are you guys thinking? And I appreciate you guys working on this, like, at this level now and listening to the residents' voice, so.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
If it was just about having a local contact, would that bother you, or are you okay with that? Because my question is, when we were talking to the safety service director, one of the examples is we could have our officer drive up to Loveland and serve them the papers. So that was actually one of the examples. So that is something that we're interested in. But if that was what was asked
I kind of go back to Keith. Is it like, I'm under the impression that the registered agent, the statutory agent, is who gets served papers for like an LLC, and like, is it going to do good serving? Is that an official legal communication, serving papers to somebody that's on a registration?
So like, if an LLC or corporation, you have to have a registered agent for service of process in the state. But that could be an attorney's office in Cleveland. It just needs to be somebody that you can legally serve with papers. Really, the local contact is more like, we need you to designate somebody who's responsible for responding and doing something. Because you can have like a Canadian corporation that has registered with the law firm in Columbus, but they don't know who to hire here to come out and fix the furnace or the roof or whatever it is. And that's really the idea. The question is, how much of it is really the debate. It's like, yeah, we had, I forget who it was that brought up, we had one that went, yeah, it was you, brought up one, we had round and round and round and round. Well, the trial on that particular, another trial on that particular version was supposed to start today, but not, because her attorney has withdrawn. And so that is still drawing out on a property that's been in front of council. But yeah, I mean, I get the point, and that's kind of the question, is how far do you want to reach to you know, again, to start at the beginning, and it's the same conversation we've had about the chronic nuisance ordinance and all these others, like, what is the problem? What is the thing that is really causing the issue? And then start from there. What's the best way to fix that? And if the problem is that we have property maintenance issues or emergency kinds of issues, and we're not getting anybody to respond, and then it's a question of figuring out, well, what are the response problems? Are they local, are there people that live here, that live local but are not responding, or actually owner occupied and are not responding? Or is it, you know, or is it foreign corporations from outside Ohio, they're buying these investment properties and not doing anything with them? Or is it actually a property maintenance issue where it's just a question of really pursuing the properties that are the problem, and like we don't need to follow up and focus on those and take care of those and take them to court and over and over and over and over until they get used to it. And that's kind of the question. And then the other side of this is, if you are going to set up a registration thing and have a local agent, the question is how you're going to enforce that. What happens if they don't comply? Because the idea is, oh, they won't be allowed to rent in Norwood. Well, does that mean that we're going to evict people 6 months after this goes into effect if they don't register? Is that what you're going to do? You know, or is it going to be, well, we're going to end up chasing them. We're going to end up chasing 100 or 1,000 of them instead of chasing the 5 that are really causing the problem. And that's, again, just back to the issue, what it is you're trying to focus on and how hard you want to go at them when you do. So,
I have a story of a friend of mine who is a landlord years ago when they were doing the inspections, and I have a question for you, Mr. Cameron. This is a statement, and then I want to ask you this question. That I can remember going into the building department, and him and the staff were literally screaming at each other, because what he was saying is every time he'd come back, every year, there'd be changes. They'd change something. I don't know if you had any, if you have any, like he'd come back and do this, and they would change the, you know, they has to do this, and this year. And so he would say, but you guys are changing this every year. And, you know, of course, the building department, they would say, no, we're not. But he would be adamant that they're changing every year. They would change something.
Our experience, I mean, I will say we've had, we are fans of the Norwood Building Department. Like, I'll go on and, I mean, I publicly defended them on our little community group.
Is
like,
that your
because,
picture in the room with all the candles and hearts around it?
I don't know. They are.
That's hilarious.
They are. I like having the local building department where it's like people I know to go talk to work through things, and like it's. I've been a contractor for 12 years, and they're definitely easier the processes are easier. It's just easier to work with than Cincinnati. And so as to like, are they changing stuff? I will say, like, when I go to look at a piece of HVAC equipment, or when we go to buy a rental property, we'll go look at it and we'll be like, oh yeah, this looks pretty good. And then we get in there and like, oh, I didn't see that. And so, and that's got to be frustrating to the landlord if there's something that's, oh, now you found this. But people miss things, you know. So
I'm a fan of the building department as well. I'm a fan of our building. Absolutely. Hopefully I didn't come across it.
No, so, you know, it was more just the compliance, the frustrating part. If anything's been frustrating, it's just that and I can tell you, if there becomes any kind of registration here, and we see that like only 20% of the people are complying, like that's going to be frustrating, and possibly frustrating to the point where like we may check out and say, we're done. I'm not doing this when no one else is doing it. And like I just think that the compliance is, if you got people that don't want to be found, like getting them to comply with something where there isn't really any teeth, or the enforcement becomes hard with it. And I'll say the city employees, like, you need them to be engaged with whatever you do too, because even if there's a law and they're not bought into it, you know, nothing's going to happen anyway. So
the only thing that was said was, to somebody's point, and I can remember 3 times from when I've been on sitting here, that I have contacted someone outside of Norwood that own, you know, that we're looking for somebody that owns this home. So I've contacted, like they live somewhere else. So I can tell you 3 different occasions where I've contacted someone outside of Norwood whose name was on that home to try to get a hold of them. So we do it.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Respectfully, I wasn't able to do it.
Okay.
And I can track down all my old boyfriends on
Okay.
Facebook. So
Maybe give me a call and
I'll give you a call. I'll send it to you.
I'll help you out. Give me a call.
There.
So.
Thank you.
Comments, if I may, just,
Please.
I appreciate you trying to do something about this. I think that making a restrictive rule about living in the county, I mean, what if I live in Claremont County, or Butler County, or Warren County? Then I have to pay someone to be a registered agent in Hamilton County, which some places are like that. I have property all over, and all it does is raise costs and drive down the value of the houses. The chief said things are getting better. That's because things are reasonable. This gentleman talked about it too. All another rule or regulation is going to do is make it go in the opposite direction the way you want it to go. If you want to do something, open back up the old rental registration. Nothing that anybody has said is going to get more people to comply than complied then. I mean, do you have, just because you write a new rule, and just because you say Hamilton County, you're still not going to get those that are going to comply, whether I'm in Hamilton County or not. And we all face it. I mean, I have so many calls and so many emails and so many texts that I try not to be found. Now, if it's an emergency issue, I'm on it. But people are trying not to be found. And you can go, like you see, they're talking about on the state site, you have to have a registered agent. And if it is an attorney's office somewhere, that's your best person to get to. If
Sometimes.
well,
I'm an attorney. They don't answer emails.
well, if you get a letter on behalf of a client, you're going to respond.
Sometimes.
Okay, well, most attorneys I know will, because then they bill. So, anyway, I'm be around and talk
Good
about it
points.
more.
Good points. Thank you.
Please.
He jogged my memory, one thing I didn't mean to say. So I participated in the City of Cincinnati contractor registration, and I will tell you, and I'm not exaggerating, 90% of my spam calls, texts, and emails have been because someone's done a public records request and gotten my contact information from that registry, and there's a huge downside to having that information. Like, once you create a registry, I don't know whether Keith can weigh in on this, does that become public information that's subject to the Freedom of Information or public records request? And like, it's
Looks
a
like it's got
huge,
him.
it's a huge bother, like a huge bother.
I assume we're not just gonna sell you.
That's the problem with the Hamilton County site, is everybody and their brother can get on there and look up and get all that information, including your signature if you signed it with your
But it's
signature.
a PDF format in Hamilton County, it's a little bit harder, like Cincinnati actually has like, it's in the table.
I'm on the contractor too.
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
Ms. Kelly, we'd love to hear from you.
All right, so most of everything that needs to be said has already been said, but I'm just going to say a thing
hear
or
it
two
again.
more, or maybe kind of in a different way, or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, so I mean, it's already been talked about that there's this state level rental registration, and that if someone is not going to bother with state law, they're probably also not going to bother with local law. I'm assuming that you guys are all familiar with the normal distribution. And landlords, like attorneys and teachers and doctors, all fall on the normal distribution where the top 10% are really excellent, the bottom 10% are really terrible, most of us fall somewhere in between, and that 90% of problems are caused by 10% of the people. And so what you're looking for is the 10% of the people. And so, Hamilton County goes as far as, Breeden mentioned that you check a box when you purchase a home that says whether it's going to be a rental or not. And they go as far as like sending you a notification, hey, you need to fill this out. So going back to Chief McCabe's comments about like the manpower involved, they can't get compliance and they're making an effort to contact you and say, please comply. And so, like, I don't know how that comes out. Like, who's going to send out notifications? Who's going to even pay attention? Like, it's the auditor's office that does it for the county registration. And they're the people who also process all the property transfers. You're not processing property transfers, so who's like paying attention to when properties transfer and who's going to reach out? And, you know, so going back to there's people who have to, like, someone has to actually be doing that work. So the one question I have is, like, have we ever taken the time to benchmark other communities and what they do that's been successful? Does the city have the right to go knock on the door and ask the tenant, hey, who's your landlord? Or, like, are there other ways to achieve that without, I guess all I'm trying to get at is, like, if you are going to enact some legislation, please try and make it something that is effective at addressing the problem at hand and not just something to make you feel better because you put something on the books. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
A comment, as far as the box on the Hamilton County, I think there's enforcement, I believe, if you're caught, like if you don't check rental, that it says, the wording says that they could fine you $1,000 if caught. Like, so I don't know of anybody who's paid that or been caught
Yeah.
or whatever, but I think that's the wording on that.
Right.
So, but you know, if you don't have property and you don't have to register and you worry about that spam, it's no skin off your teeth. Like that's us. So like,
I'm
I
going to
get it.
say, yeah, I don't know what percentage enforcement there is out there of like
Right.
that registration. I will
Right.
say, like, I mean, I always, when I have someone come and want to rent from me, the first thing I do is I look up the address they live at and I look for the rental registration. Probably 8 out of 10 have rental registration. So, I mean, that indicates that compliance might be pretty decent on the county level. I'm not really sure. But, yeah. I have a hard time imagining on the city level that it would be even that good.
I look for evictions. My first thing is evictions. How many they got?
The county wants to know if you're living there because they charge you more tax if you don't.
Okay.
You don't
That
get
doesn't
the-
surprise me one
You
bit.
get credit.
Doesn't surprise me one bit.
And they will charge you $50 if they catch you not complying with your rental registration. They'll charge you $50 a tax bill as a fine. Or they can, they used to.
Okay.
And I think they send out the notification like twice. Like they send it out right after you close, and then I think they send it out one more time after that, saying, hey, bill is out. Then after that, I think they give up. But,
I was just curious as to like what the situations are that would drive wanting to contact, like, for the heat thing was brought up. Like, if you've got a building with 10 tenants that the heat's out, don't you think that those 10 tenants would want to give you the number for their landlord? And like, if he's not answering them, is he going to answer you, he or she? So I really am curious on like, what are the specific cases where like we can't get a hold of people? And
I will say, that when they won't talk to the tenants, if we get a hold of them, they're far more likely to take us seriously.
but the tenants are going to give you their number,
Right.
like,
For the
so
ones-
when have we been unable to get contact information? What situations?
I'll reach out for specific cases, but to me, if administration is coming to us and saying this is a problem, I'm assuming there's cases, but
Right.
I'll ask for specific ones.
And I certainly have the one that I've described.
Which was?
It's the homeowner who moved because the next door neighbor was so awful, and I can't find the landlord. It's an LLC, and Mr. Braden said he's going to help me find it. We're going to go on Facebook later. So let's do this. Candace and I are sort of taking the lead. We've been meeting with, we've met with the Safety Service Director and the Community Development Director. I've taken notes on your questions, your concerns. In particular, I like Mr. Braden's idea about the water department. I think that was yours. About the labor to enforce, about compliance. I think those are all really good questions. So let's get information and then we'll continue the conversation. If there's anything you think of after this meeting, feel free to shoot me an email. And yeah, we're just going to keep.
And I will say, a lot of these ideas did come from other cities who are doing this. So it didn't just come from a light bulb above our head. And so we're looking at that and then like asking the building department. I mean, we don't want it to be a nuisance to people who are doing a great job. We got reached out from administration saying, we need help in this. So we're just trying to figure that out for
I
everybody.
have property in about 10 different cities around here, and a lot of them have some kind of rental registration, and some of them do stuff, but generally it just becomes another tax, and they don't really do anything at all.
All right, point heard, thank you. And then our last item is public comments. Is there anything additional that you want to talk about? If not, we will go ahead and we will be discussing the rental registration at our next meeting, I would say. And do we want to schedule that now or
Maybe wait till we hear back.
to gather the information? Okay. All right, so we'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you so much.